Then I hit 17 and 18. I had a mentor explain and show me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and actually gave or sent me some YouTube videos to watch on Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What is going on, guys? Coach Abby here. Today I'm actually going to be doing a few Q&As. I did this a while back. I screenshotted a few of the questions, and then there were one or two that have been repeated that people have asked me that I'm not sure I've shared before, and if I have and you're just watching this, it'll be new to you. If you've already seen it, it'll be maybe a refresher for you. But I felt like the more that I shared my videos and my life with you guys, it should be an open space to where you can do Q&As, and then I can add more value and share more of my life experiences, whether it's in jiu-jitsu, marriage, health and wellness, whatever it is. That's why I'm here, right? So I'm going to get into it. The very first Q&A that I did when I was in Europe, I had a question that said, what's something you didn't expect teaching a new set of students without any experience? That was challenging in so many ways, but also rewarding in so many ways. So the simple effects of just understanding the surroundings and situational awareness was a big one that was pretty new to them. And then also understanding fight, flight, or freeze and how we might react differently to the scenario that we're in, right? If it's danger or somebody approaching us unexpectedly, how we could be somebody that tends to run away, tends to want to fight and engage aggressively right away, or we just freeze. And that was very new to them. That's something that I don't think is shared often in schools or within communities, and it's really important because we have to understand how we can control our bodies and our minds when something like that happens. So being able to share that with them with such little experience was really unique and something I really enjoyed because it seemed like they were really understanding how important it was, right? Depending on the type of scenario that they might be in or somebody that they care about might be in. The other one was just an encouraging, it wasn't ask me anything, but they said, no questions, I just love so many girls wanted to learn and join. So that is huge to me because it's hard joining or having a lot of girls in the area of jiu-jitsu really want to stay and learn. There are several and it's continuing to grow, but that has a special place in my heart because I really do want to empower women to understand how effective jiu-jitsu really can be for them. Another question was any cultural differences teaching people outside of the US/Canada? Yeah, so first was just obviously the English or language barrier. You have to speak a lot slower and simplified, right? And with that, it's really just over repetition. You can do it a lot better, but the first 1 or 2 days I found myself wanting to use harder words or more complex words that were not necessary. So it helped me really just strip down to very basic words, right to the point, and using really a lot of body language as I was explaining things to really help it connect, right? Even if they knew minimal English, but they saw and knew enough to put it all together and really have it in their brains. Another thing that I wanted to share was the Chinese culture, because they were Chinese students in Europe learning English, lots of background in cultural mixes, right? But the culture of Chinese and Western culture is so different. And so when I explained what we were doing and how we were going to be doing it, I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable because you are closing in space. You are, getting ready to understand, like, breaking grips. If somebody approaches you from the back, what happens? If somebody tries to grab your arm, what do you do? If somebody tries to get in front of you in your face, what do you do? What kind of stance should you have against somebody? What is something you should do if more than one person approaches you? And so as I was talking about that, in the beginning, it almost was so new to them, and in some ways I could tell that a few of them were uncomfortable, right? Because you do close in space. You do things that you don't normally do in your day-to-day life. And Western culture, I think we've learned to adapt a little bit better. There are obviously some people that don't like to be touched or close or anything, and jiu-jitsu is not for them, and that's fine. but in Chinese culture, it was something that they once again had to learn over repetition because they are not very affectionate in general. The ones that I was with, they were very adaptable, so it wasn't super awkward. It was just one of those little hurdles in the very beginning we had to go over as we were explaining what the week or 2 weeks were going to be about. Another question that I don't have here but was asked several times before was what got me into jiu-jitsu. So I grew up in South America. I am the baby of 5 siblings, and so with that I had 3 older brothers and then my sister's the oldest, and I feel like I had no choice but to try to survive, and I didn't feel like I wanted to be pushed around constantly, especially by the world. So by the time I hit 17 and 18, I had a mentor slash teacher, and they were talking to me, and I said I was really into martial arts. Now, funny thing is, my brother-in-law, before he married my sister, I was 14 at the time because she's older than me by a lot. I told him I was into like kickboxing, I was into martial arts, but I didn't really have a specific one I was gravitating towards. I just really liked it. It was very enticing to me. So at 14, it piqued my interest, but I was nowhere near a gym to where I could have experienced or tried a class. Then I hit 17 and 18, I had a mentor explain and show me Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and actually gave or sent me some YouTube videos to watch on Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I was like in awe by how cool it was and just how effective it was. And so I asked if he could teach me, and he said, sure, find a friend to be a partner and I will try to teach you a few things here and there. I was like, okay. So we're in South America. It's not really big at the time. Now it's growing, but nowhere near schools there were no schools nearby that had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I couldn't train. So I get back to the US and go to college, and I Google Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools near me. And sure enough, there was one that was a few miles away, and I couldn't afford jiu-jitsu in the beginning, so I did kickboxing, and I loved it. It was really fun. I did it for about a year, I think, maybe a year and a half, maybe a year. And then I would just walk by the jiu-jitsu classes, and I was like, one day I'm going to go in there. I just can't afford it just yet. And the owners knew that like I really wanted to, but I am not somebody to say like, hey, will you give me a discount because I'm a college kid and I'm broke. So I just would watch and hope and like, oh, I'm gonna do it one day. And one of the professors actually came up to me one day after kickboxing and said, hey, do you want to try a class? And I was like, here's the thing, I really do, but I know I'm gonna fall in love with it and I can't afford to do those classes. Kickboxing's cheaper. And he said, let's do this. You do the classes, we'll let you borrow a gi, and if you really like it, by the end of the week, we will try to work something out. And I was in shock, and I was so excited. Like, no way are you gonna give me this awesome blessing and opportunity, because I know I'm gonna love it. So sure enough, I think there was maybe 3 girls that were going consistently, and then like 20 to 30 guys. Now the dynamic is very different, but that was up in upstate New York. And I remember loving it so much. It was so challenging, and I was extremely spazzy. It's very embarrassing to even think back on how I was, but I come from being the baby, 3 older brothers that kind of picked on me a lot, an older sister that was kind of there, but then she left when I was like 2nd, 3rd grade because she's older than me, and I had to fend for myself. So I was pretty spazzy and crazy, and I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, am I ever gonna be able to grasp this? Like, there's so much happening and I don't know what's happening. And on top of that, my grips and fingers were in so much pain because I was holding on for dear life every single day. But I ended up training like 6 days a week. Sometimes on Saturdays it'd be like 2 classes because it was women's self-defense and then the normal class. And I was just in love. So I had 2 hand-me-down gis, would train my heart out because they gave me a discount that was just, I was over the moon about, and that's what kickstarted my journey. Then I just continued it on as I transferred schools in the university and then moved, South Carolina, and the story goes on. But it was one thing that I think I always wanted to understand effectiveness of martial arts and then even more so when I understood Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And now, 8 years and some change later, 8.5 years later, I'm realizing more and more that it is just a constant physical, mental battle that is also one of the most rewarding things, and honestly one of the few things that I still to this day find being one of the most stress relieving places to go. That for me is huge, because we always have life hitting us from, you know, curveballs and things that are unexpected or not planned, and get discouraged and this happens, and it was just always a place where I didn't and couldn't think about life. I just had to be there in the moment. So if you are just starting off, or you are maybe even 2 or 3 months in and you feel like you're drowning, understand that it's pretty normal, and give yourself some time. Sometimes people get it really quick, and sometimes it takes others a little bit longer. It definitely took me a little longer to calm down, to breathe. Breathing was a huge one. I never threw up in jiu-jitsu, but I got really close. It's pretty normal for people to gas out their first week, the first few classes, and then at some point some of them will just have to run to the bathroom and throw it up and then kind of rehydrate and get back to it. So that's how I started. It was something that was a very small interest and then grew into an amazing opportunity that just became really life-changing to me, which is why I love to share it with everybody else, just because it's now growing more and more. But when I had started, it seemed like it was in certain places of the US, but it wasn't really huge. So if you haven't started and you're thinking about starting, I would suggest looking at a gym near you and going out and trying a class, understanding it's going to be weird and maybe uncomfortable in the beginning, or you might be like me where you just fall in love with it right in the beginning. It was love at first sight, and I never went back to not training. I just wanted to keep going because it was so amazing. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to be doing more Q&As in the future. I will answer anything and everything that's appropriate for you guys to help you guys on your journey, help you understand a little bit more about me, and my life, and I hope you enjoy. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. If you didn't notice, I now have a Patreon, which is new to me, but if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, more than welcome to. Share more about my life and insight on what's going on. If you don't, enjoy the free content. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.